Good morning, everyone. This is DJ Ron G. Joseph, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
All right. Um, on WSAN radio, it's 28 minutes after the hour. So what? We're 2 minutes early, but we're all right. We got Joseph Lee with us from Impact Counseling for our Impact Hour. And boy, a lot of things went on this doggone weekend. You just don't know. But I want to start off with this, Joseph. I was talking to some parents. And remember how we had those fire drills and things that we did to make sure the kids were safe and all that? It's a crying shame right now. Parents are making exit routes if they're with their kids. If something happens, a shooting goes on, if it's two kids, whatever, the parents get the kids no matter what, they got a place to meet at. They never go back where they left from. So now they have an exit plan when they go out. So they make sure everybody's safe. So and then I was speaking to a nurse the other day, and she was telling me that even though the shootings are going on, they say normally a regular shooting, you could sew the wound up. She said with the ammunition they use nowadays, there's nothing left to sew up. And they said that is the big issue. Even though it's an assault rifle, it's the ammunition they're using to mutilate the bodies. And I sort of stopped and said, why? Why are we using assault rifles in this society? Supposed to be the greatest country in the world, but yet we can't get a handle on this. Then it was this Laura Bovic, whatever her name is, out there in Colorado. She jumped on the other day because Denmark had a mass shooting there, and she jumped up and said the exact words, see, gun control, they didn't stop that, but she failed to say the last time they had a mass shooting was 7 years ago. Then she had her audacity to have a Christmas picture with her kids holding assault rifles. So what signal is that sending? I had to get off my soapbox on that one, Joseph. That was just, it was something that I just couldn't imagine that happened. Because I got news for you. I have grandkids. I got brothers and sisters. I have sons, daughter-in-laws. God forbid something happened to them and I'm within range, I'm going. Like the lady in your valley. Police couldn't stop her from going over saving her kid. I'm sorry. If a politician can't take control, somewhere along the line, we're gonna have to take control. Now, when they turned around and said, Cruz said this, well, we gotta have more good guys with guns. But he failed to recognize this one thing. If you can't bring a gun into a place right here, that person, that good guy walking with that gun is also breaking the law. So it's really hard. But anyway, Joseph, I had to get off my soapbox. So good morning, sir. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good this morning. How are you?
I am, I was up to 1 o'clock reading and doing things. Next thing I know, I had to go to bed and 5:30 hit. So I'm up.
Well, in preparation for this, and my wife's not feeling that well. She's fighting something. We're hoping it's not COVID, but we're dealing with that. So I was up, but few times in my career as a therapist and a practice owner have I been ahead of the time in what we've talked about, and then it come to fruition. There's a presentation I do in the schools with the kids called the GPS presentation, and it kind of synthesizes our current situation with the criminal justice system and society. And every time I do this presentation, when I'm doing a group, all I have to do is watch the news. And it has never failed me since the 15 years I've been a therapist that everything I talk about comes to fruition right within the group. So the kids can really see the realities of the criminal justice system and how people get pulled into it. Well, we're kind of in that watershed moment here with gun control. And since we've been talking about this, since I've been coming on the show, we have basically predicted what was going to happen in, Illinois, here in Highland Park. And a lot of people don't know this. I don't know if because of that tragedy, right before that in Philadelphia, there were 2 police officers that were shot, right?
Yeah.
And you know, one was shot in the forehead, right? And the other one was shot in the shoulder, and then we're rushed. I don't know what the conditions. I hope that, you know, those officers are recovering. I hope that they haven't succumbed to their well, the one that was shot in the head hasn't succumbed to his injuries. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't think they did. But I want to point out what Jim Kennedy, the mayor of Philadelphia, said. And I think that's where most of us are going to have to go in this country, in realizing that we have a love affair with guns. And that love affair with guns is going to have to change to a love affair with our society and our people and our kids, versus this love affair that's fed, as we talked about in the previous show, through fear, phobias, and greed with guns. And we have a particular issue because we've also said previously that the legislations, the red flag laws and all that, I think we talked about this last time, don't go far enough. Well, the young man who, you know, went on that rampage on the 4th of July, he wouldn't be caught by the current laws because he's old enough to go out and purchase a gun.
Yeah.
However, like I said previously, this young man had presented with homicidal ideation and suicidal ideation before. And yet, with the current laws that we have on the books, he can still go out and purchase a gun. In fact, I heard that one of the commentators on the news last night said that the parents, after this young man had, you know, attempted suicide and threatened to kill his family or kill everyone, went out and helped him possibly go out and get a license or get something to purchase a gun. And he was then able to get a gun, and that was the gun that he did this horrific act. So we've also talked about in our country, we are grooming monsters.
Yeah.
And then they're surprised when they grow up and do something. So what's also interesting, if you look on, I think it's CNN, the mayor remembers the shooter.
Yeah, she did.
Now,
She did.
he said he was a part of Cub Scouts. Now, before I was in the military, many years ago, I was in the Cub Scouts. I, Joseph Lee, promised to do my best, do my duty to God and my country.
Right.
To help other people and obey the laws of the pack. Now, how do you go from that Cub Scout oath to becoming a tattooed active shooter on the top of a building that kills people on the 4th of July? How does that happen? Right? Like the mayor said, there's a lot of steps that had to have happened.
Right.
So what has happened? We have collectively, as a country, moved away from the values that we have to turn this around. We can't just point at politicians and say, you know, the politicians have to do more. The politicians are going to do what we allow them to do.
And
that's what they're going to do. And they're doing what we as a country allow them to do, and that sit back in their offices, and even their offices aren't safe. January 6th, you know, and this is coming out, you know, and it's coming out in the media now that, you know, we have had a president that had no problem with people with guns going to the Capitol and having their way. We're going to have to talk about allowed lawlessness, allowed oversaturation of our country with military grade weapons that do the type of damage that you just talked about to our own people. We have become the enemy. And we are not, as a country, able legally right now to go after the threat. Now, if you notice, look at the psychological profile of these folks that are now getting these weapons. The age demographic between usually 18 and 21, and that they are kind of social misfits. They have failed, so-called in matriculating in society to becoming successful. And then we have all these currents through social media and other things that are radicalizing these folks that are not fitting into society. And then I think people forget, we just went through and are still going through a pandemic where a lot of folks have had to go through something that they never had to go through in this country, where they were told to be at home, where they could stew in their mental illness, in all these things, and then they come out 2 years later.
Yeah.
And they have access to more weapons. There are more weapons on the street than ever before, because remember, we talked about this before. All the gun shops, if you have been to any of the gun shops during the pandemic, you notice there was one thing that was going on. They were buying up everything. Now all these guns are in the community, mental illness is in the community, and we now have all this perpetuated rhetoric of starting a civil war or whatever the case may be. So we're kind of ripe for a disaster. And these disasters keep happening. I think somebody said, maybe we need to keep the flag at half mast continually.
Yeah.
We just had Uvalde disaster. We just had Buffalo, New York. And then I can't even get into the other part that we wanted to talk about today, the movie We Are One, where we talk about racial inequity, because we just had a shooting of is it Jalen Weather, I think is his name. I'm not sure if I got the name correctly here. Let me look. Unarmed, Jalen Walker, who was just killed. Now, obviously, there's some things about that we need to talk about, but this man that just killed 7 people was peacefully apprehended. Jalen Walker running away,
shot.
So, what are we doing? Just had the same thing happen in my hometown of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Young man was, drunk, got it. He was pulled over, but ended up somehow getting shot in the back of the head by the police officer. He wasn't a mass shooter. He should have been possibly maybe detained if he was drunk or whatever the case may be. But how is it that these folks that can shoot en masse people get taken in peacefully, and we are still getting killed even if we don't have a gun, right? I know it's a separate issue, but I think it just brings to the point how unhinged we are as a society. I heard a number, maybe I'm wrong, I think it's correct, but we've had 300 mass shootings this year alone.
You're about right. In 2022, I seen the same numbers.
Okay, so let's process that for a second. 300 mass shootings. 300, not 3, not 30, 300. Now, we're under attack. If you're waiting for a civil war, guess what? Wait, good morning, you're in one. We've got the Second Amendment that says, we have the right to bear arms, but it doesn't say a thing about, do we have enough sense to all have these arms? We're protecting a right we are not responsible enough to handle. Would you give a mentally ill person a gun?
I'm glad you brought that up. When Trump was in office, if I'm right, didn't he sign the bill saying that mentally ill can get a gun?
He did say something to that effect. So, you know, there's a saying that I say in counseling, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. What are the actions of irresponsible legislation, people like Trump and people like in our society, that we have laws so loose on, and we tie the hands of law enforcement, even though we've had 300 mass shootings this year? What are we saying in terms of our actions? And how long are we going to allow ourselves to say it? Now, I get it. I hear the rhetoric. What are we going to do about it? There's all these guns, all this stuff. Well, listen, there's things we can do about it. And I think we've talked about it a little bit. If you have a child that goes out and commits one of these mass shootings, then you will be charged with manslaughter if it's a minor. If you help someone, like they did this young man, possibly, I think they're looking into it, go out and get a military grade weapon, then you will be charged with manslaughter. And I'm gonna just say it here. We've got to start treating these domestic terrorists like terrorists.
Yeah.
It's in the name. And everybody within the sound of my voice has been in the military. You took a vow. You raised your right hand to defend against enemies, foreign and domestic. Until we can see these folks as terrorists and treat them just like terrorists, we're going to continue to have this problem. Because let me tell you something. If you decide to shoot 7 people that are unarmed, or if you decide to shoot people going shopping, if you decide to walk into a school and shoot children with these military grade weapons, I dare say you're no longer an American citizen. You're an enemy of the state. You should be treated as such. You don't get a chance or a fair trial once you become an enemy of the state. You get a date with the morgue. When terrorists start getting treated as terrorists, that's a deterrent. When we realize that the same thing that we are protecting our freedom has enslaved us, then maybe we'll make a change. But how long it's going to take when you don't have the right mindset and you're delusional in your thought process as a country? And half of the country, I hate to say it, is pretty much delusional. I can go to this DSM-5 back here and read you the definition of delusional, or those of you that are sound of my voice can look up delusional thought process. And there's going to probably be some people when they read it, it might sound familiar.
Yeah. I want to back up to Highland Park. I was reading something, the news about what went on out there. They're just trying to figure out what triggered this guy to do that. First, he dressed up as a woman to disguise himself, to hide his tattoos, to walk through there. Then I started digging deeper into there. I'm gonna say it. I don't have the clarification yet, but his dad ran for mayor and lost. If I'm right, his dad ran for mayor. He's a Republican and lost.
You're correct.
That Democrat lady won, and she said she knew him when he was a little boy, but she said, but not now. I said he needs the full strength of the law down on him. So I don't know if they're trying to say that's the reason why he did it, because his daddy lost.
No, I mean, they haven't, I haven't heard anything that linked those two things together, but I think that you have to look at the situation in these terms. Regardless of his political affiliation, his dad's political affiliation, let's look at what he did that day. Okay. He disguised himself, went to the top of a building, fired and shot at least 20 people. 7 of them succumbed to their injuries. And this man was able to escape, basically come off the top of the building and blend in with the crowd and escape. That took a lot of planning. That took a lot of maliciousness, and the soul and the morality that we talked about obviously was not there because he's mentally ill. And he had presented, we missed the window when he presented with, when he tried to kill himself. Remember I said this earlier, I said, in the cases of someone who presents homicidal ideation, in some cases of suicidal ideation, they should never have access to a gun, ever. Now, you just pointed out that Trump said that if you have mental illness, you should still have access to a gun. Laws like that, or our barnyard, our barn door open pathways for mental ill people to get access to weapons like this, to continue to do this. And until we get to the bottom of what's going on here.
Yeah.
And saying that, look, if you're mentally ill, there's some mental illness, you should never have access to a gun. We need to get those laws on the book, and we need to possibly hire more FBI agents, create a task force that monitors all these versions of social media. And when you put something out there that says, I'm going to kill people or kill my family, guess what? You now are on that list and you're going to get raided.
I'm glad you brought that up, the task force. So when 9/11 hit, they put a huge task force together. Okay. We have lost more people now since 9/11 to mass shooting, and nobody put a task force together. Also, I'm gonna bring up another point, is that Greg Abbott, he was so quick to get that abortion law passed. He was so quick when they 51 people in that tractor trailer. He was so quick to go down there and say, we're gonna tighten the borders up, but yet not utter a word about, are we gonna have a special session? Because sometimes people gotta realize common sense is the best sense you can have. Common sense tell you, if you gotta be 21 years old to buy a pistol, you can be 18 to buy an assault rifle, then there's a problem. Common sense ought to go into there and say, change that 21. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out.
Ron,
but they are so scared about their base. If they do that, the base is going to move. But somewhere along the line, somebody's got to move.
Well, I think, Ron, what you hit the nail on, hit the nail on the head on is this. You said common sense, but I think it's safe to say common sense has not been common for a long time. Okay, it's no longer a common sense. We've got a group of people in mass in this country that have that bus left the station a long time ago. And that's kind of the problem. We're in a delusional mindset. We are raising the enemy right now. And we are not seeing where the enemy is. It's that child that you used to see in the Boy Scouts or wherever, and you're not keeping an eye on what he's matriculating to. These young men that are doing these acts, there have been warning signs, but we're not catching them because the laws aren't designed to catch them. And what I was saying with that task force, the FBI, mental health, I'm gonna tell you where we're headed. People like myself that have done suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation assessments, we're gonna have to work closer with law enforcement, be more proactive, and catch these guys in advance. That's where we're headed. And we've got to get past this love affair with military grade weapons. And I don't know if we're going to ever get all the weapons off the street or, contained. But what I do know is we're going to have to make these laws so serious that if you have access to, or if you have somebody mentally ill and they're a minor in your house and they go out and do something stupid, the parents and whoever sold that gun is going to have to be brought in to some charges. What are our options? Logically follow them out. I don't know if we're going to ever get past this love of assault weapons. I don't know. But I do know that our quickest solution is to get a lot more proactive and a lot more serious with that profile of person that commits these crimes. If we could, and we see them, there's a lot of these kids. I think one of the politicians said it best. There's a whole lot of these type of guys that are out here in the community. And we're basically wrestling with a situation where everything's about to explode. Right. And it's exploding. It's been exploding. 300 mass shootings and we aren't even halfway through the year. I think it's safe to say we're off the rails.
Yes.
Now, how do we get back on the rails? Well, we first got to recognize it's a problem. Right. Some people think it's a right. Okay. It's a right that we're not responsible enough at this point to handle. Now, I heard someone else say this, and I'm trying to put it in the way they said it. The argument that people are the problem and guns aren't the problem is kind of a stupid point too, right? There's other people that have, okay, this is what he said. I'm trying to remember the point. It was so perfect. Mental illness is not necessarily even the problem, right? Because we don't have the monopoly on mental illness in this country. Other countries have mental illness to the level possibly that the United States does. The difference is they don't have access to the weapons that we do.
Yeah.
So when you say, well, it's not the guns, it's people that are mentally ill, what are you gonna do about that? Well, it's the access to the weapons as well as the mental illness. That's the problem. Now, we've got all these people. We can't make people go and buy safes and secure their arms and make sure that they're watching their family members and all that. So we can't do that. But we can do is set the laws up that if you don't do that, and it's a minor, you're going to jail too. And those stores are going to hit those irresponsible stores that don't follow legitimate background checks and psychological evaluations. And just a simple question. Have you ever been assessed to have homicidal or suicidal ideation? And if they lie, or maybe they can do that background check. If we have a system in place, right, nationally, that if I commit a crime here in Texas, it'll show up on that system in Michigan, right?
Yes.
Why don't we have the same thing for people that have presented homicidal ideation ever? And the stores, the gun shops have to run that background check, and it will pop up if a person has had homicidal ideation, and you connect it to their fingerprint.
Yeah. Well, three things.
And they can't buy a weapon. That's the key point.
Yeah.
They will never be able to buy a weapon or have access to a weapon. And if you know your child or know someone has ever had homicidal ideation, you let them know, look, you should never have a weapon. Oh, I don't want you. I want to have a weapon. Oh, it's my right. No, it's not your right. It is not your right in this country to have a military grade weapon. We already covered that. That law was written in the 1800s, and the technology at that time was a musket. So you have a right to a musket.
That's not funny, but it's going to take them time to load that bad boy up.
Now, 3 minutes at least, if you're good, to load a musket. You might get one shot off, but then by that time, people have a chance to respond. We should never have had the technology that we have that can kill people in mass protected by the Second Amendment. Those weapons were designed for war. But guess what? We're at war now.
But they're preying on the innocent.
Well, they're preying on our society because you have sick individuals that play. Our society is sick. That's what we got to understand. Our society is sick. And it's creating kids that grow up, practice murders, practice these things on games. You know, look at the most popular games that are out right now.
Yeah.
Call of Duty, GTA, all these games. And some folks, they do this. And then guess what? They grow up, they don't fit in society. They lash out and they want some attention, because what happens with kids? Understand the psychology of kids. They grow up, they want attention, they act out, they want to find that boundary. And when they realize that society has failed them and they blame society and they want to go out with a blaze of glory. That young man that did that thing on the 4th of July, did this horrible thing. He drew pictures of himself in a pool of blood and drew pictures of killing people. That's the red flag. I mean, you know, I don't think I ever drew pictures of that when I was a kid. You know, I didn't go out threatening to kill everybody as a kid. You know, and when we see these warning signs, we can't be, oh, Johnny's just being Johnny. Don't worry about that. No, Johnny's about to show you what he really thinking about. And when you present that, you got to deal with that. Can you imagine if one of us would have drew a picture of killing a whole bunch of people when we were little and then talked about killing people? We would have found a boundary when we were younger.
Oh yeah.
These kids aren't finding that boundary until they get up on that roof. And what was crazy is when they had those 20 officers that looked like that arrested that guy, he was so nice and calm and put his arms up and got down on the ground. And he was so in control because he had finally acted out. And now he's getting his boundary. Listen, every time you apprehend somebody like that and take them in peacefully, you set the script for the next person that wants to do it.
Well, you know,
when we go and attack a terrorist, you don't want to know what I was trained to do in the military.
Yeah.
It wasn't to apprehend them peacefully. So we're protecting monsters, yet our citizens we're killing.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, Joseph, or just a point I'm gonna make. When you said if they got suicidal tendencies and all that stuff, if you look at some of the commercials that come on about medicine, it tells you could have suicide tendencies taking this medicine. That's one. Number two is domestic terrorism. They turn around and reduce that somewhere down the line. They reduce it to manslaughter. You never hear it say look at all the shootings that went on. Have they been charged with domestic terrorism? I haven't heard of anything yet.
We have a problem.
It's got to be made. An example has to be made to let the people know we mean business.
Well, the problem is we don't mean business. We don't mean business. And I'm going to tell you something. Mentally ill people might be mentally ill, but they're not stupid. That's why you don't have too many active shooting situations on military bases. You might have somebody to try something outside of a military base, but on an actual military base, you don't have that, right? Yeah. Why is that? Because you know doggone well what would happen if you try to do something like that on a military base. So now we do have incidents, don't get me wrong, right? But there are places that you don't have active shooter situations. They look for soft targets and they know that they're probably going to be taken in. I mean, we treat active shooters better than we do some of our own citizens. I mean, the guy that did the horrible shooting, the atrocity in the Carolinas, those police officers took that man to McDonald's. before they took him in.
Yeah.
Look, you're an active shooter, you're an enemy of the state. You don't get due process. Sorry. You're an enemy of the state, and we treat you like the Taliban, shot on sight. And when they start seeing that happen, I think that we're going to see a reduction. You know, I think we're going to see a reduction in this stuff. We start seeing people's houses get raided. You fit the psychological profile of somebody that becomes, now they got this name, now they're calling them a kin. Because it's, well, who's Ken, right? Ken and Barbie.
Yeah.
Right. The kid that looks like, you know, he probably at some point was going to go the right direction, but now he went the wrong direction. Now he wants to go out, become an active shooter. Well, if you know that this is a profile of this person, look, we're going to have to make it real serious if you're raising a kin, so to speak, and I don't, you know, and he goes out and does what he does, other people are gonna have to be brought into this punishment. You start hitting these stores, these gun shops with major fines, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're going and instill that process I was talking about with fingerprints and connecting that to your mental health status. If you ever have homicidal ideation ever in your life, I don't believe you ever should have access to a gun, ever. Whatever triggered you to have homicidal ideation, I don't know, maybe you'll be triggered again. But at that point, the processes we have to neutralize or pull your guns, you know, having to go and petition the court and all that, man, please, come on now. That's too late.
So
it's too late.
Let me reflect on the politicians. This is a quote that was told to me years ago. I remember to this day. It is, the problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. You know,
the problem is your attitude and your mindset.
Yeah.
I like to add that. I see these signs all the time. Come take it. You know, the flag back early in our history, back in, I guess, like before the Civil War. I'm not sure. I don't remember the history too much of this flag, the exact history, but they're basically saying that, hey, gun laws, you know, just come take my gun. You know, you're gonna have to kill me to take my gun, right? So we got this love affair with these military grade weapons, and I'm not saying we don't have responsible people should not have access to firearms. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is we have to be more responsible to keep these weapons away from mentally ill people. And we have a problem right now because we can't service all the mentally ill people that are out there. Every weekend in San Antonio, just check the hospitals. They don't have any more beds. So where are these people at? They're in the community. And where are the guns at? They're in the community.
Yeah.
So guess where the problems are going to be? You do the math, think it through logically. If there's an en masse group of people that are mentally ill, possibly homicidal, suicidal, and we have all these guns in the community, and then we have laws that basically can't catch people like the guy in Highland, then we're going to have this problem continue. Just like the mayor of Philadelphia said, if I had the ability, I could deal with it, but the laws don't allow me to. And we're going to have to get past this love affair of guns, because here's the deal. Now we're starting to see what I've been doing and what other people have been doing to know the situation. I don't go to too many large gatherings. We've been talking about this. We've talked about this offline.
Yeah.
We don't go to too many large gatherings anymore. That's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. Just like, for instance, our family always get together on the 4th at Park. And this year, I never seen some people in our group kept on watching the surroundings.
Listen,
it takes away having the fun you's out there for when you got to worry about what's going on, who's going to come up, and then people come up with backpacks and want to talk to you. You're a little leery of that nowadays.
You heard about the schools, right? The schools are now requiring kids to come to school in clear backpacks.
Yes.
In the military, we used to have, it was called a rally point, where if stuff gets hot, you enter combat, there has to be a point where you kind of get together after and kind of assess who's been shot, who made it, whatever the case may be. People are doing that now just to go to a restaurant.
Man.
When we're in the military, you have to have an exit strategy in case it gets hot. Here's where you got to go. Here's where you can fall back, and here's where your support is. I'm doing that at Cracker Barrel now. Hey, hey, here's the exit. Here's the exit right here. If it goes down, family, hey, duck, get out the exit, and then we got to get behind something. That's stuff we used to have to do in the military.
Yeah, now I do. But Joseph, I do know one thing is when I go out and eat somewhere, I'm always facing the door.
You and me both. But I've been doing that for years. But now, when I sit with my back to the wall or to the whatever, I now have to train my family on how to survive an active shooter situation. Don't worry about daddy. You go this way because daddy's going to be actively engaging with who's shooting at us or shooting around us. I'm going to buy us some time to get my family out of harm's way because I'm armed. I'm going to fire at the target that's trying to shoot us. Yep. And that may slow somebody down enough time, and then that may put me in harm's way. Somebody might mistake me as the active shooter. So I got to get my family out the way so they don't see me get killed. And hopefully I can slow this down and take this dude out. Or I don't see too many women being active shooters. So it might be, but hell, where we headed, ain't no telling. Because I've done suicidal, homicidal on women too.
Yeah.
But I think the tally is pretty one-sided on who's doing the active shooters. And it's males between that age group of 18 and 21 that have got disenfranchised from society. And I just want to focus it this way because there is hope here. We can do something about this situation, but it's going to require discussions like this for people to understand how ridiculous their mindset is. And my question is this: the Second Amendment was designed to provide you freedom, but I'll be doggone if that's not what's enslaving us right now. It is too broad, the scope of protection under the Second Amendment. What type of arms should be protected in the Second Amendment? And right now, we damn near aren't responsible enough to handle a slingshot.
Yeah.
As a society. So we're going to either wake up or this is the new normal. No more parades, no more going out to the park and enjoying jazz because a firecracker go off and everybody's wondering what's going on. Are we getting shot at? And this is a strong possibility we are. You know, that situation in Philadelphia where the officers, they don't even know if that was intentional or not. They think that it might be from people shooting the guns up in the air. And I think a few years ago here in San Antonio, we had somebody that died downtown because of some idiot shooting guns up in the air and a bullet comes down. You know, it's really kind of a common sense point, right? Remember common sense? If you shoot a bullet up in the air, what's going to happen?
Yep. Gravity.
It comes back down. A high velocity bullet going up, guess what? At a certain point, it's coming back down. And it came down and hit somebody downtown. So look, the writing's on the wall. Are we going to be responsible enough to create legislation that's going to put enough teeth to make sure that people are not going to sell these military grade weapons, to people that can get access that have mental illness. Are we going to do something about that? We have mechanisms in place that can detect if somebody is possibly going off the rails. If a person puts online any form of social media, we're going to have to get to the point where the FBI can monitor that. Because let's just be honest, we know that stuff is being monitored, but they don't have right now, the laws aren't set up where they can go after somebody. Now they did, somebody called in a threat to Uvalde. I don't know if anybody knows this yet, but check it, it's on the news. Somebody called in a threat to Uvalde. They traced that phone number to a hotel that was out of state and they arrested that fool. That's where we got to go. If you put a threat anywhere on paper, electronic, social media, we got to have enough staff out there to go after and give them the ability to detain these folks, right, and check, the house to make sure that they don't have access to some military grade weapons. If you know somebody that has had homicidal ideation, and we need to educate people on what homicidal ideation is. When you talk about killing somebody or killing people in mass, that's homicidal ideation. Then if you couple that with somebody that has attempted suicide, they don't ever need to have a gun. They're unstable. And even after they stabilize, they have the potential or the ability to be a killer. That's why people that have epilepsy, they shouldn't be driving, right?
Right.
Because they may have an episode of epilepsy and kill people. So if you have epilepsy, you shouldn't be driving a vehicle. Well, guess what? If you have homicidal ideation, which is a mental illness, at some point, whatever triggered you to go back to that, you should never have access to things that can kill groups of people en masse. And if you're not responsible enough to pull yourself away from threats that can kill people en masse, then you have to be considered the enemy of the state and dealt with as such.
I agree with you.
I will defend against enemies, foreign and domestic. And listen, domestic terrorism is terrorism. Now, when are we going to be terrorized enough to do something about it? I'm sick of it. I'm sick of doing assessments on people, and you put the paperwork in, you do that, and then you tell people, and we do. And by the way, when you do a homicide or suicide assessment, one of the things you tell parents and families is make sure you get all weapons, knives, medication away from these folks. It doesn't make sense to make sure that folks like this don't have access to a military grade weapon. That doesn't make sense. But you have a president that says people that are mentally ill should have access. What's the logic in that?
There's none.
No, there is a logic in that. There is a logic in that. When you do something irresponsible like that, you're trying to protect the big corporations from having their profit margin go down. And they couch that as freedoms. All right? That's an irresponsible law that says that a person that's mentally ill should be able to have access to it. Because you can get better. Yes, you can stabilize. But right now, look at what's going on with the economy. Look at what's going on with the mental health system. We're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And then you have all these guns out here and you don't see the storm and the explosive, things that are just right there. We got to have sense enough to say, look, enough. We need better laws. And these red flag laws are a joke. They're a joke. If that young man that did what he did on the 4th cannot be arrested proactively or detained proactively, then these red flag laws are nothing. They're nothing. we've got to change that mindset and go, you know what? My fraternity brother, who's a federal agent, said it best. I love second graders more than I love the Second Amendment. Talking about the Uvalde situation.
Yes.
I concur. I concur. I love second graders more than I love a Second Amendment that has not been ratified or changed to address our current situation. We've got to get past that. But I did want to have everybody get a chance to watch this, Who We Are, because I think that lays out some excellent things that actually connect to the delusional mindset that we have with our love affair with guns. We want to talk about, at some point, I want us to talk about, this criminal justice system, the system that is affecting us, how we have this shift on how people of color view law enforcement in a lot of ways versus how other folks view law enforcement and why it's that way. It's a process on how we got here. It's a process. And to reverse that process is to first be aware, educate ourselves, and then we've got to hold ourselves as well as our politicians accountable to what's best for our communities. Yeah. And shows like this will help with that. But it's not just enough to sit there and listen to us talk about it. People got to get out and do something about it.
And you know when they can do about it? November 8th.
That's it. They can vote.
They can vote.
They can vote. And that's a big part of this. Yeah. We got to get out and we got to hold these folks accountable. Hey, if you're not going to put some really common sense laws in place to address these issues, and there are laws you can come up with that will really address these issues, you got to go. You got to go.
You brought that. Well, it's 20 minutes after the hour. We just been going. We're on WSN Radio with Joseph Lee. Since you brought that up about the laws, I've been watching states have a law that was written in 1800, utilizing it today that has nothing to do with it. They're finding their own little loopholes on how they could address things. I'm going back to the abortion law. Just saying. There was one state that found something there in the 1800s prohibiting abortions, and they turn around and use that in law. So yeah, we got laws out there, but they pick and choose which one they want to use that fits them the way they want to perceive it.
Well, and I'm gonna put this out here. I'm not going to speak on, pro-life or non-pro-life, but you got to think about something. Now that it's illegal to get abortions, there are people that are going to have kids that are completely irresponsible and will probably not allow those kids to go to adoption. And what happens with those children? Okay. A lot of those children are going to end up in systems, criminal justice system, foster care systems. Based on third grade performance is how they determine how many prisons they need to build and how big these prisons need to be. Now, just logically think it through. If a whole bunch of people that probably shouldn't be having kids have to have these children because they don't have adequate access to, healthy options to end a pregnancy. A lot of these kids are going to come out in society that is already ill prepared to deal with the people that we have now and may find themselves in prison or acting out in society as some of these other active shooters and other criminals or whatever are acting. So is it to our benefit? To whose benefit are these laws? If you're forcing people to possibly have children, even in the case of rape or incest, Who's benefiting from that other than the criminal justice system? They say there's some religious ramifications here, but you know what? Just because you make it illegal to have an abortion doesn't mean that people are going to not going to try to have it. So now you've lost the child and the person. The person that is because it's ultimately their right anyway. You can't force a person to have a child that doesn't want to have a child. You can't force them to, because they can try to have that abortion either way. So we really have to think about where we're at mentally in this country. And what may sound like a good spiritual, I don't have all the answers. I'm not a preacher, right? But I do see problems. And if you have a daughter, if you have a mother, if you have a wife, you mean to tell me if somebody breaks in or my wife gets captured and raped, she's got to have that child? Is that what you're telling me? Are you telling me if somebody rapes or hurts my daughter, rapes my daughter, we got to bring that child to fruition? Is that what you're telling me? Is that where we're at in a modern society like this? Is that what the Supreme Court came up with? We have lost our minds in this country. We have lost our minds in this country. And you know what? I'm in the mental health field, but I don't want this much business. We have lost our minds in this country. We have lost our morals. We have lost our foundation, and we're going to have to get it, and we're going to have to get it quick, because there's wolves at the door. China loves the fact that we are so discombobulated and so disenfranchised. Russia loves the fact that we are so at our throats. Look, a democracy is dependent on an educated populace, meaning that you got to know something to actually fully benefit from these rights. I don't know who or what we've been thinking, but it's time to make a left real quick.
Yeah, you just said something that people need to hear this again. China and Russia are just laughing at us right now, saying we got to send nobody over to do anything. They're doing it to themselves.
Look, we are shooting ourselves.
Yeah.
Look, I had this discussion last night about a family member that is scared to join the military. I said, listen, we already are living in a war zone. You might as well join the military if you don't have a lot of options in terms of work, which I don't understand, because a lot of people aren't working. You should be able to get a job. But if not, the military is a great option for a lot of people because it's a life hack. Where else can you go? Get education, travel, get your education paid for, and you worried about going into a war zone? That's what you're scared of? Guess what? We already in there. 300 active shootings in this country, mass shootings.
Hate to say this, you may not be stationed overseas. You may be stationed right here in the United States.
I don't know. Right now, we don't seem to be able to understand where the enemy is. Yeah. Look in the mirror, America. It's that kid that you aren't paying attention to. It's playing Call of Duty all day. Yeah. Trust me. Yeah. I've had quite a few of them that are my client. That's that kid playing GTA and committing 30 felonies a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you wonder why he goes out. Wow, where did Johnny get this from? The game you bought him.
There's babysitting him.
Yeah. He's training them for his future occupation. Yeah. So don't be surprised. Oh, and then you go out and buy him a gun because it's his right. Get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
On that note, Joseph, I'll tell you on that note, we're 28 minutes after the hour. Joseph Lee from Impact Counseling and the Impact Hour on WSN Radio. Joseph, we appreciate your insights, your logic on everything. Every time you're on the show, I get stuff that comes in and they just ask me, they say, you know what? he puts things down so logically that we understand. And that's the problem right there. People are not taking logic, they're taking conspiracy over logic. So we do appreciate you coming on. Go ahead.
Let me just say one thing. I want to give everybody that's listening to this a bit of advice. Take those cell phones away from your kids. Take them away. Talk to your children. If you have a gun, get a gun safe. I shouldn't have to tell you this, but I'm going to say it. Get you a gun safe. Put that social media device in that gun safe. And unless you can regulate and watch what they're doing on that site, monitor your children when they're on these video games. Listen to the conversation that they're having. Pay attention to your kids before we have to. Pay attention to your kids before law enforcement has to deal with your kids. You have to set that boundary before society does. When you send a kid to a therapist, there's work that you're supposed to do as a parent as well. Your main job is to observe, and social media is one of the first things that I always take away for those kids that progress and get better, which a lot of them do, thank God. The common denominator is removing social media from their life. It's an illusionary world that a lot of these kids live in, and on social media. They need this FaceTime with real people in their space that care about them, that love them, and they need to know they belong to something or someone that cares about them. Social media ain't it.
Yeah.
So take the phones away. If you got those kids playing these games online, pay attention, limit it, throw a book in front of them, and I'll leave it at that. Okay. Take the phones away.
Yeah. All right, Joseph, we appreciate it. We'll see you next week, same time, same station. So peace and take care of yourself.
All right. You do the same.
All right.